We're on number 12 on the exam 2 review. On number 12, we're asked to solve several equations and then classify what type of equation it is. So let's start with A. I'm going to try to write really small and fit these all in here. For A, I want to start by getting rid of my parentheses, so I do that by distributing. So that'll be 7x minus 4x plus 8 equals 3x plus 15 minus 12. Now when I am solving linear equations, once I get to here, before I start moving things, I want to look for similar terms on the same side. If they're on the same side, I just combine like terms, so that will become 3x plus 8, and this will become 3x plus 3. Alright, so now I want to try to put all my x's on one side, all my numbers on the other. Notice I have a 3x on both sides, so when I try to put my x's together, they end up canceling off both sides. Alright, so I end up with 8 equals 3, which is clearly a false statement. So when this happens, it means there is no solution. And then we're also asked to give the type of equation. When this happens, the type of equation is a contradiction. Okay, and that kind of goes with the idea that 8 equals 3 is not true, so that's clearly a contradiction. All right, let's look at B. Now B, we have some restrictions. If I look at my denominators, my only denominator is x minus 3. So remember, my denominator cannot equal 0. So that means that x cannot equal 3, because 3 minus 3 would give me 0. If I get a solution of x equals 3, I have to throw it out. Now I can clear fractions on this one. So my only denominator is x minus 3. So I'm going to go through, and I have to multiply all the terms by x minus 3. And that includes the 1, because you can't multiply part of an equation by a number and not all of it. Alright, so that should make some of my fractions fall out. So those cancel, and I get x plus 5 equals, these cancel, and I get 8. And then I'm left with 1 times x minus 3. So I get x plus 5 equals 8 plus x minus 3. If I put my similar terms together, I get x plus 5 equals x plus 5. And you may stop right there and say, you know, x plus 5 is going to equal x plus 5 for pretty much any number. Or maybe you keep going and you get down to here. All right, so this is a statement that is true. So when this happens, what we normally say is our solution is pretty much any number. So we say all real numbers. But remember, on this one, I do have a restriction. So I can't have x to be 3. So I'm just going to say all reals except x equals 3. So that means anything will work as a solution except for 3. In this type of equation, where your x's drop out and you get a true statement, this is known as an identity. All right, so now let's look at C. I'm looking at my fractions. I see a 3 and a 2. That means my LCD will be a 6. So I'm going to go through and multiply everything by 6. And remember, I have to do that regardless of whether or not it has a fraction. I have to multiply by the same number all the way across. So notice here, this is just 3 over 1. So there's nothing to reduce. I just get 6 times 3 is 18, so I get 18x. Now here I have a denominator, so 3 goes into 6 2 times. So I'm left with 2 times 2, which is 4. Over here I don't have a denominator, so 6 times 5 is 30. Here 2 goes into 6 3 times. I'm left with 3 times 1, which gives me a minus 3. So I get 18x minus 4 equals 27. I get 18x equals 31. And I don't get a particularly pretty answer, but I do get a single answer. So there's my solution. This is kind of a normal equation where you solve for x and get one thing. And oops, that's not the right thing. All right, so this is what's called a conditional. So this is kind of like your normal equation. All right, so if we look at the bottom, not a lot of room here, but we're going to solve these equations. Notice that A has two sets of grouping symbols. So I'm going to start on the inside, and I'm going to get rid of the inside set by distributing the -3. So I have to keep the brackets, keep the x. That'll be a -3x minus 6, and that equals 4. So notice when I distributed, those parentheses are now gone. So now I need to distribute this negative. So remember, when you distribute a negative, it's going to change all of your signs. So I get 3 minus x plus 3x plus 6 equals 4. So now I've dropped to those grouping symbols. If I put similar terms together, I get 2x plus 9 equals 4. Minus 9 to both sides, I get 2x equals -5. So I get an answer of x equals -5/2. All right, so to work the last one, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to erase C so that we have some room here. I'm going to come back and work part of it up here. All right, so ignore that. We're going to work on this one. So let's start by looking at any restrictions I might have. Now I know I have restrictions because I have x's in my denominator. So if I look at my first denominator, that will be 0 when x is 0. So 0 is a restriction. And then when I look at my second denominator, they're both the same here. That will be 0 when x is 2. So 2 is a restriction. So those values, if I get them for my answer, I do have to throw them out. All right, so now I'm ready to build my LCD. I'm going to need an x and an x minus 2. So that tells me what to multiply by. So I'm going to multiply each fraction or each term by x times x minus 2. And I'm going to do that all the way across. All right, so this should make my fractions fall out. So here the x's cancel. I'm going to write this up here. And I'm left with 7 times x minus 2. Then the x minus 2's cancel, and I'm left with a minus 3 times an x. And then the x minus 2's cancel, and I'm left with 5 times x. All right, so I'm going to distribute the 7. And I get 4x minus 14 equals 5x. Let's say I put my x's on the left. If I do that, I get -x minus 14. I've taken everything off the right side, so it's a 0. So then if I add 14 to both sides, I get -x equals 14. Divide both sides by -1. And my answer is -14. Now remember, if I got a 0 or a 2, I'd have to throw that answer out. -14 is not a restricted value, so I get to keep it.